Hi, my name's Rikki, and I'm an alcoholic. Hi, thank you so much, Jen. I know we are sisters. And thank you for inviting me to be here in Provo with you. Your town is beautiful. I was walking around, I made a video for my friends, and they were all laughing. They're like, I love the commentary. Because I'm like, no way. Like, taking videos. I just walked to the store. Like, y'all are really lucky. And I'm really glad to be sober. My sobriety date is April 21st of 2006. So in a couple months, I'll turn 20 years sober, which is crazy. I know. Obviously, I got sober when I was 5. No, it's crazy. I'm actually super pumped. Okay, here's why. I've been planning my 20-year party for like the last several years. Because I was so pumped. Okay, I started planning my 15-year party when I turned 10. Because I wanted to have a quinceañera. And I was so excited. And I was talking about it for like 4.5 years. And I was like, it's going to be great. My friend that I got sober with was going to choreograph a dance. And I sponsor a lot of women. I have grand sponsees and everything. And they were like, can we wear dresses too? I'm like, everyone can have a dress. We're going to go to downtown LA and get like giant ball gowns with glitter. And like, I was so pumped. Well, guess what? I turned 15 during COVID. I know. I feel bad for me too. And so my quinceañera consisted of me sitting in my living room in front of the Zoom screen with a tiara on. And I was like, so I had like a small sweet 16, but I was like, we're going to let this ride till 20. And the other day I was with one of my sponsees who I've sponsored for a long time, and I go, I'm going to have my quinceañera. And she looks at me, she's like, B, I know you speak Spanish. I'm like, fine, eventañera. So I'm going to have a party, and I'm pumped in a couple months. And I've grown up in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'll tell you my story, but I got sober at 23 years old. And so I grew up chronologically and in sobriety at the same time in the folding chairs of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm so grateful. I want to welcome everybody who's new. And it's going to be, a night because RJ let me pick that reading. That reading makes me cry, like every piece of it. That reading is in A Vision for You. And I've taken a lot of women through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and through a very thorough 12-step process. And when we get there, that means that they've pretty much completed all of the work that we're going to do. There's a lot more reading after that, but it's just so magical. And that is my life. I commence shoulder to shoulder with all of you. And I've gotten the most magical moments of my life are when I get to stand up at people's weddings and graduations and stand next to their children and their parents, these women who were on the streets dying. And I get to, just a couple months ago, I got to fluff the wedding veil of a girl that I watched come in off the streets. And she's 7 years sober now. And she's married, and she's a wife, and like she's educated, and she's beautiful, and she's perfect. And there's never been a more beautiful bride that I've ever seen. And I got to stand. It just makes me cry thinking about it. It's just so magical, and like this is one of many experiences. They say like, don't leave before the miracle. Like the miracles already happened and then they keep happening. They keep happening. Like I'm surrounded by miracles all the time. I'm surrounded by miracles tonight. Something magical happens when we collect in a room together. And I hope you can feel it. I feel the spirit of Alcoholics Anonymous in this room already. So I'll tell you my story. Maybe I'll cry again. We'll see what happens. I come from a long line of alcoholics. So I have my grandfather's big book that was passed down to my dad, that was passed down to me. It's our family heirloom. I swear to God, like it is the only one I've ever seen. I've never seen a war medal or like a lamp or anything but the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm the current keeper of the family heirloom. And so I was probably going to wind up here one day, but I should tell you this. I don't believe that coming, actually for sure, I know for sure this is not true. I don't believe you have to come from a family of alcoholics to qualify for Alcoholics Anonymous. That is absolutely not true. One of my friends that I got sober with, she says the only thing wrong with her family is that she was in it. And it's absolutely true. She was birthed of like the most perfect parents in the world, like highly educated, lovely. Like my family's lovely too. They're just drunk, and they like to get drunk. And I'm from the drunks. I'm from the South, not of California, but of the United States. So I was born in Tennessee. Let's go. And then I lived in Alabama and Arkansas before I made my way to California. And so I've grown up in Alcoholics Anonymous in California. I grew up mostly in Los Angeles. I went to school there and everything. And so before I really started speaking, people didn't know like about my family or where I was from. I lost my accent a long time ago, but if you put me next to somebody from the South, it comes back almost immediately. But like hillbilly right away. And but like people don't know my story, right? And so people that know me are like, "Oh my God, dude, you're from the South?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Oh, were you a debutante?" That's my favorite question for a few reasons. Number one, I think that's the best advertisement for Alcoholics Anonymous I have ever heard. Because that little train wreck that sauntered in here 19 years ago in a dirty miniskirt, the first question that you thought of wasn't, "Oh, were you part of a high society organization that teaches grace and manners?" Like, it just wasn't what you thought of when you saw the train wreck that walked into Alcoholics Anonymous. The old timers, the long timers, were more like, "Honey, are you alive? Do you need a hamburger?" And let's get you some clothes that cover your parts. That was it. And I think that's a really funny question, "Were you a debutante?" because it couldn't be further from the truth. And I giggle when they ask me, and I go, "No, honey, I was a hillbilly. We were poor." And I'm from a hillbilly Southern family. My first memories are 4, 5, and 6 years old. I used to climb up on this ladder in this apartment in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I would pull these bottles out of the freezer and I would pour them down the drain. And I didn't know what they were at like 5 years old. I just knew that when they came out and my mom drank them, it made bad stuff happen. And I was a smart kid from the jump, and I just thought, let me remove the problem. I thought alcohol might be the problem. And I thought if I can just get rid of this alcohol, maybe it won't be so scary here. And my dad had moved out to some place called California. I didn't know where that was. But my sister and I are in this one-bedroom apartment with my mom, and there was all kinds of scary stuff. And I'm the kid that used to hide in the closet because my mom would pass out with cigarettes every night because she was drunk. And I would wait up so that I could put them out so she didn't burn down our house. And she had boyfriends that would beat her up and all sorts of stuff. And I watched this stuff. And what I have to tell you about my mom that's more important than any of that is that my mom was the most wonderful woman in the entire world. And I relate to her alcoholism the way that I describe mine, which is, it's not that I don't love you, and it's not that I don't care, and it's not that I want to hurt you. It's that this thing is a power greater than me, and it literally controls my body when I don't want it to. And if I could choose you, I would. I really would. And thank God, so I'm standing in front of you. I'm the product of really good sponsorship and really good therapy. It's the only reason I'm standing here able to string together sentences all these years later and that I function looking like a normal human being in the world. But one thing neither group has ever really had to explain to me, I've always known in the cells in my body, is that my mom wanted me more than anything in the whole world. And if she could have chosen me, she would have, and she just couldn't. You know, my mom had alcoholism. Alcohol chose for her, and with all that scary stuff going on, the story I've always told is the only story I knew. I used to ask how I made it to California. And what they would tell me is that I came out to California to go to Disneyland, and I just never left. And, that checks out. I really like Disneyland. I'll be there tomorrow night. It's my spot. But I asked my dad, I've been sober a long time, and now that I'm older, he tells me more. And a couple years ago, I was out to breakfast with my dad, and I said, "Dad, what really happened? How did I make it to California? Why did I stay? I don't remember." And he said, "Well, you were out here going to Disneyland. That part's true." And he said, and actually it was you that told me what was going on. And I said, "I did?" He said, yeah, you were about 5 years old, and you were out here visiting me in California, and you pulled me aside in the hallway, and you said, Dad, would it be okay if we stayed here with you? And he said, baby, what's going on? And I said, well, we don't always eat, and we don't always go to school, and there's a lot of scary stuff happening. It's nice here. Could we please stay? And the next thing that happened, I guess, is that he called my mom. And I got to tell you this about my mom. So you'll hear my story. I went on to want education and all these big things. I wanted this great big life. My mom was a simple Southern woman. Like, she never wanted any of that. I don't remember my mom going to school. I don't remember her working. The only thing she wanted in this world were her 2 little blonde baby girls that she had. She just wanted to be a mom. And so the next thing that happened is my dad called my mom in Arkansas, and he said, Angie, I think it would be better if the girls stayed here with me. And my mom said, yeah, I think that would be a good idea. And because my mom loved me enough to let me go, it's the only reason I had a safe place to sleep every night and clean clothes to wear, and I got to go to school every day, and that I'm standing in front of you today, all these years later, able to string together sentences. And my mom, my sweet mom, would come out and visit her 2 little blonde baby girls, and I watched her get sicker and sicker. And when I was 11 years old, she died of cirrhosis of the liver. And so she was in the hospital, and the doctors told her if she didn't stop drinking, she was going to die. You know, and it's alcoholism, and she couldn't stop drinking. And as an alcoholic woman, I completely understand. And the reason I tell you this part of my story is because it's such a big part of who I am. But when my mom died when I was 11 years old, by 11, I understood. What I understood was that alcohol killed my mom. And so I hated it. I wanted nothing to do with it. I didn't want to hang out with you if you drank. I never wanted to drink. I became phobic of alcohol. And being a kid from a hillbilly, poor Southern family, okay, so I was raised in the 80s. And back in the 80s, we had this thing called babysitting where, yes, and they would put you in front of the TV and they would just like walk away. And with like this weird little TV dinner that's probably made of some weird stuff. And so I would watch stuff you're not supposed to watch as a kid. And I remember watching these ladies on television, and they were so fancy, and they were different than the ladies that I knew and the women that I watched in this alcoholic world. You know, they were doctors and lawyers and business owners, and I wanted to be like them. And so when my mom died at a young age, I set my mind to having this great big life, because what I thought it was, if I can get an education and a bank account, nobody can hit me and I'm not going to die. And so I was the first person in our whole family to go away to college when I was 18 years old. And now let me tell you a little bit about my dad. I don't know if this room, well, I see a lot of really young people. Y'all may not know who this is. My dad looks just like Rod Stewart. Like, if we become Facebook friends, you'll see. I get to travel a little bit for Alcoholics Anonymous, and I get messages all the time, dude, he does look like Rod Stewart. I'm like, I know, it's weird. And so when I say Rod Stewart, it's not actually the singer. His name's Daryl. But if we called him right now from the podium and said, are you Rod Stewart? He'd probably say yes. So Rod Stewart drives me up to San Francisco to go to college when I'm 18 years old, right? And we're unpacking my stuff. And I grew up watching television, so there were always these like really TV-like moments that I thought were going to happen in my life. And like this moment where you drop your kids off at college, I imagined would be really sweet, right? No, not in my family. My dad, we're unpacking the car, and my dad looks super freaked out, and his face turns white. And I was like, Dad, what is wrong? And he's like, he just looks all scared, and he leans in and he says, just run and don't look back. Like, those are his parting words to his kid going to college. And I was like, why are you so weird? Like, why can't I be from a normal family? And what I think, like, so at that age, though, you didn't have to tell me to run, because that's how I got through life. Just run and don't look back, no problem. Like, that's how our big book talks about self-propulsion, which is providing one's own driving force. If I can just run fast enough, I can try to outrun where I came from. And that was how I got through life. I can even do that in sobriety, right? Like, if I'm not paying attention, I can try to run so fast that I outrun the inventory I need to do, the feelings that I'm having. You whatever it is. Let me keep myself so busy so I don't pay attention to what's actually going on inside. That can be good and bad, depends. But back then, I was just running, and I got up to school straight A student in all these organizations, and I got up to school straight A student in all these organizations. Everybody knew it. I was going to law school after college, and I had these great big plans because if I can so Bill talks about it in Bill's story. He says, I'd prove to the world I was important. That was me, right? Like if I can just make everything look good on the outside, maybe I can feel for a minute like I deserve to be standing here with the rest of you and that I deserve to be breathing the same air as you, but I remember feeling like I was dying inside. And you know how a duck is on the water and they look all peaceful, but like underneath their feet are like this. Like that was me every single day, just trying to like run as fast as I could so that I could breathe a little bit and stay alive. And junior year of college, I was home in Los Angeles for Christmas break, and I was out with some friends from high school. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to drink tonight. Never had touched alcohol. And back when I used to tell that story early in sobriety, it sounded so crazy. So my mom is not the only person in our family that has died of alcoholism. Like everybody's a drunk. My grandmother, my mom's mom, buried most of her children as a result of alcoholism before she died. Like everybody has died of alcoholism. So knowing what I know, like that would shock me telling that story in early sobriety. Why would I sit there and make that decision at 20 to say, you know what, tonight I'm going to drink? But as the years have gone on, I realized that it actually makes sense because I didn't understand alcoholism as described in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, had never seen it, didn't know it existed. All I knew was what I saw. And what I saw, I thought was a question of willpower, right? Like, I just thought that people weren't strong enough to handle alcohol. And up until that point in my life, in my mind at 20 years old, anything that had tried to break me, and there had been a lot, had failed. So why was this liquid in the bottle going to be any different? Because by this time, I'm a straight A student. I'm on my way to law school. Like, I'm doing all these big things. In my mind, I was so arrogant, right? Like, and I just thought, I'm sorry for you, family, that you couldn't handle this thing, but surely I'll be fine. I was wrong. And so I had like a half a drink at this party during Christmas break when I was 20 years old. And I got back up to school and I was drunk every night almost immediately. There are probably people in this room that will identify as high-functioning alcoholics. Not my experience. When I'm getting loaded, I have zero desire to function whatsoever. And I'm bodily and mentally different from my fellows, but I don't know it. I don't know the big book yet. I don't know that, I didn't have a sponsor to start drinking. I didn't know. And so I get up to school. Some years ago, I was out with a friend from college, and we were having an amends conversation, right? There were a lot of amends that needed to happen for my behavior. And I'm talking to her, and she said something really nice. She said, it must have been really hard for you to start drinking in college. And I said, well, that's really nice, but what do you mean? And she said, because we were all drinking large amounts of alcohol, and you had alcoholism, and we didn't. Right? And that's what's crazy. Our big book, which is, I like to identify as a big book enthusiast because I feel like it sounds less aggressive than a big book thumper. It sounds like more like there's butterflies and sparkles coming out of it. I'm a big book enthusiast. And so the big book does a really good job of breaking down this disease of alcoholism. But I fully believe in going through it with what I call a trained sponsor. I used to try to read that thing on my own. Newcomers, try it. It's fun. I would go home after the meeting because I wanted to be a good AA, and you guys seem to really like this book. And I have a decent education. And so I would go home and read this thing, and I was like, oh my God, what is this? It sounded like 7 years ago I was an alcoholic. I was like, what it really says is war fever ran high in this New England town. I was like, what in the world is this? Why do you guys like this book so much? And but then I had a trained sponsor take me through it, and it does a great job of describing the disease of alcoholism. So what my friend, when she said, you had alcoholism, we didn't, what she meant is that, and I know we have a lot of newcomers here tonight, this is the thing. You can line me up on a bar stool next to 6 other girls. We can drink the same amount of alcohol shot for shot. It doesn't matter. I may have alcoholism, they may not. And I don't know that I'm bodily and mentally different from my fellows. So something different is happening to me when I take those 6 shots than is happening to the other girls who take the same amount of shots. I don't know that there's a different reaction happening in me. I also have this thing the book describes, which is called a spiritual malady, which is a fancy way of saying a spiritual sickness, because when I found alcohol, and when I say alcohol, I mean in any form at all, whatever rainbow you wrote in here on, right? When I found it felt like it answered a question that had been burning inside of me my entire life. It felt like it fixed something inside of me because it did. I have alcoholism, and alcoholism demands treatment. I have alcoholism today. It demands treatment. Doesn't ask for it, doesn't say please. It demands it. It demands it 19 years later. It demands treatment. I can either treat it with alcohol in any form at all, or I can treat it with a 12-step solution. Today I treat it with a 12-step solution, but let me tell you this, if I don't, and if I rest on my laurels, I'm never standing still. I'm either walking away from or I'm sliding back toward my next drink, right? And so if I'm not treating it with a 12-step solution, I will eventually treat it with alcohol, or I'll live miserable in between until I decide to do the work again and come to whatever spiritual experience I need to have, which I have done. And so this spiritual malady, it felt like it fixed that because it is a solution to my alcoholism. I don't know that this isn't happening to the other girls that are drinking with me the same amounts of alcohol, right? And then I also have this other thing called the obsession of the mind, which is where I start to realize that I'm bodily and mentally different from my fellows. That thing is a trip. I remember I went out with these girls back when I still had friends. It wasn't long. You'll find out why. And they left real quick. I still had friends, and we were going out in San Francisco, and I was this was before I was 21, and I got sober before Uber, so there was a lot of work to go get drunk. We didn't have cars in San Francisco, and so what that looked like, we had to call those little yellow things called taxi cabs, and on a payphone, and shimmy down in our little mini skirts in the cold, and just pray to God somebody was coming to pick us up. And so we're waiting, nobody comes. We're trying to make calls. It's not working out, right? We're going to get loaded. We're not loaded yet. And we're going to do it. And these little girls that I'm with, I'm bodily and mentally different from my fellows, and this is how I start to realize it. These little girls that I'm with are really different from my fellows, and this is how I start to realize it. These little girls that I'm with, right, Becky and Susie, Becky is well, I guess we'll just go home. You can go home, Beck. I'm getting loaded because I can taste it in my mouth before I get loaded. I'm loaded before I'm loaded. The train has already left the station. An obsession isn't a craving. An obsession is a thought or idea that overrides all of the thoughts or ideas. I am gone. The train has left the station. And so I don't have friends for long because I was well, I'll just catch you guys later, right? But then once I take it, I can't tell you with any certainty what's going to happen. Once the merry-go-round starts, I'm not real sure what's going to happen. If I told you, oh, if I drank tomorrow, this is what would happen, that's just some guesses. I really don't know. I may go home and go to work the next day, or I might steal your car, your wallet, and your boyfriend. Not real sure, probably the latter. And so I don't know when I'm coming back. It might be a week, it might be a night, it might be a month. And so I'm gone, and so, right, I don't have friends. I come home one day to my college apartment, and they formed a circle in the living room. I don't know if you guys have ever had a circle. If you're new with us and you try to go out and try some controlled drinking, if you come home and there's a circle, sit down. They have things to say to you. And so I came home to a circle, and it wasn't an intervention. It was more you got to go right now. We've packed for you. Because I'm not safe to live with, which is fine. Because I don't need you anyway, you fake friends, right? I don't need you anyway. I'm out of here. I didn't like you anyway, Becky. And so... So I go and I move into this university apartment by myself. I'm Second semester senior year, I moved into this university apartment like alone, and it had an in-suite bathroom, so I moved into the bathroom. There was a bedroom attached, but it was not necessary. And so I moved into the bathroom. Did anyone else here get loaded in the bathroom? Hell yeah. Okay, if you didn't or if you're lying, here's why. Maybe you're rich. I wasn't. I was a college student, and so I moved into the bathroom because you can lock the door, so like nobody can bother you. And I don't remember windows in this bathroom, which is great because I set my mood lighting. I like lit candles, and that's helpful because it doesn't matter if it's day or night, if it's been 5 days. Like who cares? And then I moved a boombox in there for all the young folks. That's what we played music on. And if your parents have these silver things with a hole in the middle, that's called a CD. And I speak to the young people of Alcoholics Anonymous a lot, and they're like, what's a boom box? I'm like, right? And, put the CD in the box, and you press play. And so this was my drinking. Second semester senior year, I spent 21 units shy of a college degree, couldn't make it to class anymore, singing the best slow jams of the late 90s and early 2000s into a wine bottle. All day. It was me and Boys to Men and like my wine bottle. And I'm really sad to report to you that this is when alcohol was working for me. Like this is when it looked good. It only got worse from there. I was safe in the bathroom in the college. And so I went to school in San Francisco. This apartment was up on this big hill. And there was a liquor store at the bottom of the hill. Only place I need to go. And so I would go down this big staircase, and sometimes I would run into people from school. And like I used to be really active, right? I was the head of every organization. I was in like student government. I tutored a lot of people. And so I would leave, and like I would run into someone, and they'd be like, whoa, are you okay? And I was like, sure, I don't know what you're talking about. And they're like, 'cause I was drunk, and they're like, well, you used to tutor me and you used to shower. Are you okay? Yeah, don't think just because I was in the bathroom that like I did anything but sing. Too much work. And so I was like, oh, thank you so much for your concern. And what I thought was, I'll stop when I want to, and that day's not today. Because on one level, I thought I had that power because, see, I thought this thing was a question of willpower. And if it's a question of willpower, I've got it covered. And I'm not sure why you're so upset. You know, because I've got this. Like, don't you know who I am? I'm this kid. I go to this school. I get these grades. Everything in my life that's tried to break me has failed. And when I'm done with this, I'll put it down. And I'll go and resume my place in the world. But that day's not today, so everybody just calm down. You know, is what I thought on one level. That's the lie that my alcoholism tells me. But what our book says is that we often suspect that we're down for the count. Like, I knew it. And one day I went to go down to the liquor store. And if I had known it was the day I was supposed to be graduating college, I would have never left. We talk here about moments of clarity, and I'll never forget, I can feel it like it was yesterday. I went to go down this big staircase, and all the kids I had gone to school with and tutored for years were coming up the stairs in their caps and gowns, and I wasn't graduating that day. And I remember freezing on the stairs and watching them go like in slow motion, and everything inside of me broke that day. And it got quiet, and I couldn't convince myself of that lie anymore. And I remember watching them go, and I didn't think that day, I'll have what they have next year, or it'll be my turn later. I remember thinking, there goes my life, and there goes everything that I was supposed to have. And my next thought was, I guess I am my mother's daughter. You know, like, and I tried, we were talking today about who my favorite speakers are, and there's a couple of guys that have a similar story to mine. Like, there's something about being the one that made it out. You know, I was the one that made it out. I was the one that was going to do all these great big things. My dad would show my picture to everybody and say, my kid's in college, she's going to go to law school. And I beat the odds, and I beat the game, and I beat where I came from, and I was all these big things. And I remember that day standing on the staircase, and I thought, I guess I'm not, and I tried, and I lost. And so what do I do with feelings like that? And that's just the beginning. I try to pour more on to make it go away. If I can just get drunk enough tonight, I can try to forget all the damage I'm causing. I'm breaking my dad's heart. Like, my dad knows his kid's not graduating, and like, he's not sure what's going on. And like, I'm breaking everybody's hearts. I'm breaking my own. People don't want to talk to me. They tell me, don't call. You can't live here. Don't come over anymore. We can't watch you die. And like, all this stuff is happening, and I just try to pour more on to make it go away. So maybe I can sleep tonight, and maybe I can breathe a little bit more. That's the best I've got. Try to get drunk enough or loaded enough so I can't think of all the damage I'm causing in my own spirit and to you. And so I move home that summer. I'm 22 years old, and I move home that summer, and I'm living in different parts of California. Now let me tell you a little bit about my dad. My dad is my hero. He is tonight, and he always has been, and he always will be. My dad saved my sister and I from the life that we were living in before, and that man worked his fingers to the bone every single night so that these two little girls could have a different life. He took us to shows and limousines. He got us education and tutors and like everything, Girl Scouts, everything these two little girls didn't have when they were sleeping in dirty beds with dirty clothes. He worked his fingers to the bone to try to make up for that and to give us this life. And now my dad, he looks like a rock star. I'm pretty sure like he has an album, but like he ended up being a businessman because like he had to support these two little kids. He had zero plans to have two little girls. And like, he would take me to the makeup counter. He had to raise us on his own. And like, he'd take me to the makeup counter and be like, help her. And like this is my dad, Like, he's the best girl dad in the world. And like, you couldn't pay me all the money in the world to hurt that man. And unfortunately, when I'm in active alcoholism, it's the only thing I can do. And what it looks like in our family when I'm getting loaded, when I move home from college that summer, this kid, this pride and joy of the family, what it looks like in our family is that I leave that man that I cherish up for weeks and months at a time, calling jails and hospitals to figure out if his little girl is dead or alive. Because I'm gone for months at a time, sleeping in different parts of California on people's couches in dirty clothes, and so that man doesn't know if I'm safe or not. He gave me a car to drive when I turned 16, and I would leave it abandoned in different parts of California so that the police would find my car. And they'd call my dad, and they'd say, we found your kid's car, but we haven't found your kid. And so my dad doesn't know if his kid is dead or alive again, or if I've been trafficked or what happened, And then when I run out of places to sleep, because that eventually happens, I slither into the back door of their house, and I beg to sleep there one more time. And my dad starts crying when I show back up because his kid's not dead. And he says, honey, I'm so glad you're home. And I said, I know, Dad, I'm so sorry. I won't do it again. And I don't know if you've been in that moment, but I meant it. Hook me up to a lie detector test because I mean it. If I could choose you, I would. If I could choose my dad, I would. If I could choose myself, I would. If I could sleep in a clean bed, if I could come home for Christmas, if I could be there for your birthday, I would, but I can't. And I don't know that I can't. But the obsession of the mind sets in, and sometimes I can be stone cold sober, nothing in my system. And maybe it's 2 days, maybe it's 2 weeks, maybe it's 2 months, but I levitate out of my bed in the middle of the night, and I'm gone again, and I'm gone again, and I'm gone again, when I swear to God I wasn't going to do it again because I didn't want to. This thing controls my body when I'm in active alcoholism. I literally lift out of my bed, and I'm gone again, and I'm gone again, and I'm gone again, and I'm breaking my family's hearts, and I'm violating myself. Back when I was 22, I'm pretty sure my dad went to an Al-Anon meeting somewhere around 2005. I had one of those pay-as-you-go cell phones. I was at a podium a couple months ago, and I was like, there's people my age that are laughing because like y'all had them too. But like, I was like, do they even have those anymore? And then I remembered they do. They call them burner phones now. So I had a burner because I'm not somebody you give an account to. Like, back then, I'm not accountable. I don't have a bank account. I don't have a cell phone account. I have a burner phone and a pouch that I carry money around in sometimes when I have it. Like, depends on what I was doing when I left the house and was gone for 2 months. And so I have my burner phone, and my dad left a message on my burner, and I was like sleeping on somebody's couch in Palm Springs, and he said, it was a different message. They used to be all frantic, like, are you okay? Call us, come home, we'll help you, right? My sweet dad. And he left a message, it was different, and he said, we've arranged a bed for you at a treatment center if you want to get sober, click. Like it said, if you don't want to die, we've set something up for you, but it's up to you. And I was 22, and I came back to Los Angeles, and this is my favorite part. I came to my dad's house, and I requested to go tour the facility before I would move in there. We call that full flight from reality. I can't even afford a hamburger, and I have a burner phone, but I need to go see if this place is suitable for me. And so, idiot. And so, what an idiot. And so I go tour this place, and I deem it appropriate. And it looked like college, and I was not all there. Like, I was in full flight from reality. I wasn't sure what was going on. I thought I was still at school, and it looked like school, and they had, like, dorm rooms, and I was like, cool. And so I go home, and I pack for school. And I go, and so what you do is, when you get to college, the first thing you do when you get in your dorm room is you decorate. And I had packed my pink suitcase with my pink college bedspread and my matching pink rug, and I went to rehab. And so I get into the room, and I decorate my room, right? Bedspread, flower pink rug, and they gave me a corkboard. I love a corkboard. And so I pinned my sorority letters on the wall, and I decorated, and then the girls start coming by. And now I was an orientation leader in college, so this is fun for me. And so they start coming by, and I'm so excited. I'm like, welcome to my room, and it's so fun here. I was like, and they were laughing. I was like, right, it's fun. And I didn't know they were all laughing at me because most of them had just paroled from prison. And so they were taking bets. They were like, what is she? What are you? And they were making fun of me, and so they gave me a nickname behind my back. They called me Rehab Barbie. I found out. But don't feel bad for me because I wore them all down. It's actually how I make friends. Today. If you don't, people that know me are like, that actually checks out. She'll wear you down. If you don't like me tonight, don't worry, you will. Just need a minute. And just give me your number. And so I wore them all down, and we played spades and charades, and I was a kid. I didn't know what was going on, and I would go to the meetings. They would take us in a little bus, and I would take notes during the meeting because I thought I was in school, and nobody was mean to me. People people in Alcoholics Anonymous are beautiful, and people remembered my name. They didn't say, "What are you doing? Why are you taking notes, you little weird kid?" They were just "Hi, sweetie, it's good to see you," and that's why. Okay. So my sponsor today, I've had her for most of my sobriety. She told me I need to know the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous so I know what is Alcoholics Anonymous and what is not. There's nothing in the big book that says this is a hierarchy and that I'm better than you because I have time. There's nothing in the book that says you're less than me because you're a newcomer. What it says is that we walk shoulder to shoulder. What it says is it tells me how to be a sponsor. It says that we have no attitude of holier than thou. Nothing whatever except the sincere desire to be helpful. There are no axes to grind, no fees to pay, no people to please, no lectures to be endured, most importantly. We were talking today about sponsorship, and I said I always sponsor by telling stories, right, from my own experience. If I don't have experience, I'll find you someone that does. But if somebody asks me for help with something, I say, let me tell you a story from my experience, right? And pull from that what you will. Maybe it's not your time to learn that. That is okay. It's not my circus, right? I'm here to play the role that I'm assigned by my higher power. And so I'm telling you a story. If it's not your time to get it, it's not your time to get it. If I listen to your fourth column, I'm going to make suggestions, recommendations. If it's not your time to get it, I'm not going to beat you down. We're just going to approach it again. We might pick it up again 2 years from now. I just was talking to a sponsee the other night, listening to a fourth column, and I just, I started sobbing. I was like, that is it. That's it. And, I've been trying. I wanted that for years for her. And, she's there today. It's not my time. And so, that's the beautiful thing of Alcoholics Anonymous. It teaches me. It says we walk shoulder to shoulder. It says I'm not better than you. It says we hold hands. That's why Alcoholics Anonymous works. It's one alcoholic talking to another. If you're in a ditch I'm not going to walk by and be like, yo, there's a way out if you want it, right? Like, and keep walking. The reason Alcoholics Anonymous works is because if you're in a ditch, I don't care if you have 2 days or if you have 25 years. If you're in a ditch, I'm going to go down in there and I'm going to walk out with you because I've walked out before and I know the way out. That is why, I get chills. That's why this program works, because I've been in the same ditch and I know how to get out. And I don't care if you have 2 days or if you have 25 years, if you have 50 years, I don't care. We'll walk out together, no matter what. No matter what. If you've done something you're ashamed of, if I don't care, come sit next to me, we'll walk out together. That's Alcoholics Anonymous. That is Alcoholics Anonymous in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm not sure what anything else is. So I wasn't ready yet, but Alcoholics Anonymous did what Alcoholics Anonymous does. And they welcomed me, and they remembered my name, and they said, honey, it's good to see you. We have a seat for you. Welcome. And I came, and I wrote notes in your meetings, and I was pretty sure, I wasn't sure when you guys were going to elect me valedictorian of Alcoholics Anonymous, but I was waiting. You guys are slow. And I was like, oh. And I knew I was going to get an A in AA. I was taking good notes, and I was loaded at 58 days. And what happened from March of 2005 to April of 2006 is that it got really, really bad. As I told you, I'm from a family in AA where we tear through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and we tear through it line by line and word by word and page by page. We're that sponsorship family that has the dictionary with the highlighter, and we write all the words, right? And something that I've always looked up but I've never had to is pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. And the best way I can describe it in a mixed meeting is, how do you think a really pretty little girl stays on the streets week after week and month after month with places to sleep and places to go and things to eat? You know, we use whatever we can to get by. And by April of 2006, I was broken down, and I remember looking in the mirror, and I was unrecognizable. My dad, he came into my room. I would be gone for months at a time, and I came back to their house, and he said, what are you going to do, because you can't do this, meaning you can't stay here anymore? And I said, I guess I'll go back to that place. And I'll never forget the look that was in my dad's eyes, my daddy. You know, I'll never forget the look that was in his eyes on April 21st of 2006. It was not a look of hope. What he'll tell you about that time is that I was a couple weeks away from physically dying. I was 23 years old, and my body was breaking down because, as I told you, I'm not a high-functioning alcoholic. I don't eat. I don't do anything but really get loaded. And so my body's physically breaking down, and I'm a couple weeks away from dying. And what I can tell you is that I have been dead inside for a really long time. And see, I speak on panels at this treatment center that I went through and all over Los Angeles. And what I know to be true is that, we can't scare our newcomers with, you might die, because for me, it's not that I was actively trying to run in front of, fire engines or anything like that, but I just didn't mind. I didn't want to be here anymore. Because every time I thought I tried to stay sober, I couldn't do it. On my own power, I couldn't. I can't stay stopped once I stop on my own power. I didn't know that I have alcoholism, and that's the nature of alcoholism. I had no idea. I just couldn't stay stopped. And all I'm doing is breaking my Father's heart and living in pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization, and this is the hell that I'm living in every day, so I don't want to be here anymore. On April 21st of 2006, and I checked in this treatment center with no hope in my body whatsoever, not thinking that I was going to get sober, not thinking that I'd be standing in front of you 19 years later talking about a Ventanera. I had no idea. I had no idea. I stared up at this TV screen, and everything inside of me was gone. I was a shell of a human being, a creature, and I had nothing, and I had no hope. I had a trash bag. All the Barbie stuff was long gone. And I just had a trash bag with some clothes in it. And I met people in this treatment center, and they had been where I had been, and their lives were different and better. And they said to me in my early days, the most important thing I am going to say tonight, and the most important thing I will say ever, if you're new here with us tonight, please hear me. And equally as important, if you're not new with us here tonight and you feel messed up inside, please hear me. We have a way out if you want it. And it's outlined in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And there are several of us that will come down in the ditch, and we will walk out with you anytime. Anytime. I don't care if you have 2 days or 25 years or 50 years, I will walk out with you. And I have. And so they told me, we have a way out if you want it, and they said, if you want what we have, do what we do. And I was like, I was an ornery newcomer, and I was like 23 years old. And I was like, I don't know what that means. And they were like, do you want what you have, honey? And I looked down at my trash bags and my dirty miniskirt, and I was like, no, ma'am. And they were like, okay, then do what we do, princess. And I was like, okay. And so that was my surrender. Okay. And so I started doing what they did. Like, that was the best I had. And I wanted to stay sober just a tiny bit more than I wanted to get loaded, like just a little. That was enough. And like that grew and grew and grew. So like if you're new here with us to Alcoholics Anonymous, we specialize in that. Like, it's fine. It's fine. I didn't know I'd be here all these years later. Like, y'all worked your magic. And like we say some weird stuff too. And again, welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. They were like, more will be revealed. I was like, okay, Merlin. Like, is there a magic show after the meeting? Like, what does that even mean? And they were like, that means that you'll find out more later. I was like, why can't you tell me now? They're like, you wouldn't understand, princess. And I was like, fine. And like, truly, like, there are things that my friends with 40 years sober understand that I don't understand today, but like, I will later. And that's great. That's what happens here. Like, there are things people said when I was a newcomer that like literally 3 years ago, I was like, oh my God. Like, it just like made sense, and that's okay. That's what they meant by that, but I was offended. And back then, and I got a sponsor, and I started working the steps with her. They told me also when I was new, they said, honey, we tell the truth through the good, the bad, the indifferent. No matter what, we tell the truth. If you lie, you're going to get loaded. Like that secret, that living in the dark, because that was the life I came from. That was the life I was used to. That's what was comfortable for me. Like, I lie about going to the store. Like, it was just normal. Like, and they were like, And I'm like, all right. So I got my first sponsor, and they had scared me with that. And so I sat in her car literally the first time this poor lady picked me up. And I basically told her, like, my fourth step. I was like, I have to tell you some things. And she was like, okay. And I said, I've been doing this and this and this and this, and like, I'm doing this. And they told me if I lie, I'm going to get loaded. So I just figured I should tell you now. And she's like, okay, honey. She said, oh, sweetie, I did all that stuff too, and so did everybody at the meeting. You're okay. And I was like the worst thing in the world, because I was like, if you guys are going to kick me out, let's just get it over with. And because I felt like a piece of garbage, like truly. I would lay in my treatment center bed at night feeling like more dirty than the gum that was on the bottom of somebody's shoe. And ladies and gentlemen that are new with us, I can tell you I don't feel like that today at all. At all. The life I used to live is only a tool I use to help other people. It's a superpower today. It was something I was ashamed of before. I'm not today. It's a way for me to make a new girl coming in feel comfortable, because what she sees is a businesswoman who has a college degree standing in front of her. And I'm unrecognizable from the little girl that walked in here 19 years ago, right? Unrecognizable. I'd tell anybody my story because it's shocking, and really it is the magic of Alcoholics Anonymous. What that does is, like, I pray to God I'm the AA that somebody meets, because they will be dang impressed with Alcoholics Anonymous and what it's done for a little girl in a dirty miniskirt. So I started working with this sponsor, and I went through the steps with her. I read my fourth step at like 6 months sober. I don't even know what was really on that thing. I just told somebody all my secrets, and like I just like wrote my feelings, and like I came to her and I read it, and they told me to get in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous, so I did. I got a commitment. I went to 9 meetings a week, and I got a commitment at every single meeting. And I was in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. I started getting to know people. I'd be at Starbucks, and they'd be like, that's Rikki the chip chick. And I was like, oh my God, I have like friends now. Like, and like, that's what we call it in LA. I don't know what you guys call it. We have a lot of names: Cake Boss, Chip Chick, like, so come on down. And, anyway, I started to like get to know people and like build a fellowship here. And I'd go out after meetings, and my first sponsor was real clear with me. Like, she would tell me to do things, suggest, and she would suggest something, and I'd tell her, I'd be like, oh, I don't know. And she'd go, well, honey, if you don't, you're gonna die. So, like, So I'd be like, okay. We were talking about it earlier today. I was like, yes, ma'am. And like, so I did all the things. They told me to pray, so I did. Now, my dad looks like a rock star, right? Like, I'm pretty sure our family religion was the Rolling Stones. We never went to church or anything like that, but I always wanted to, and I was always seeking. So when the women of Alcoholics Anonymous told me to pray, I did. And they gave me prayers to say, and they told me what to do, but I saw what I saw on television too, and so I would like get down and I was like, pray the prayers, and then I'd do this, because I saw that in a movie, and then I'd be like, in Jesus' name we pray, ready, break. But I was trying, and I tried, and I couldn't feel anything, and I'd be in meetings, right, 1 year sober, 2 years sober. If we do the things around here, things change, and I got a job and another job. 2.5 years sober, I was sitting in the front row of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was dying of alcoholism. I was restless, irritable, and discontent. Now, my first sponsor was perfect. She was everything I needed her to be. And she was perfect for me at that time. I did my first set of steps with her. I did the best that I could. My brain wasn't even really firing yet. Like, I just wrote what I could, and I did it. And I got in the middle, and I got involved around here. I'm sure she was a good sponsor. I'm sure she told me to continue to take personal inventory. What I heard was take other people's inventory. And so I'm sitting in the front row of Alcoholics Anonymous, super involved, restless, irritable, and discontent. I'm losing my mind in the front row. I'm sitting in the meeting, and I'm like, if this guy shares one more time, I swear to God, I'm going to cut him in the parking lot after the meeting. Like, I've never had a weapon, but like tonight's the night. Like, I'm like, I see you twitching, Bob. I'm going to cut you. And just losing my mind. I was in a relationship that I had no business being in, and sometimes people will line up after young ladies and ask me why I say that. The reason I say that is that I had absolutely no idea how to love myself, so I had no idea how to love another human being. But I'm living with this guy that's sober a long time, and we're playing house. And I have years of abandonment issues that need to be unpacked, and a lot of inventory and a lot of therapy that have never been touched, and I'm throwing them up on another human being, and I'm losing my mind. And at 2.5 years sober, I'm screaming in the bathroom of our apartment because I'm going crazy. Like, restless, irritable, discontent, crazy, uninventoried, unsponsored, really, no higher power. I see people in meetings, they talk about having a conscious contact with a higher power, and I don't know what they're talking about. Because I have this thing that I pray to that scares me. Like, I say these prayers, but I'm scared of whatever this thing is. Because people used to tell me that everything happens for a reason. I think it's a really nice thing that people say, and I know why they say it. But I used to go home and think, if everything happens for a reason, then why did your God kill my mom? But I can't tell you that because I want to be a good AA, and I don't want you to think I'm doing something wrong, but I don't understand. And all I have is this power that I've collected from movies and TVs, and I'm scared of it, and I don't think it's listening, so I don't have a conscious contact with anything. I'm not praying really, I'm not feeling anything. I'm saying prayers, but they feel like nursery rhymes. And I'm going to meetings, and I'm sitting, and I'm the secretary, I'm the chip chick, and somehow I'm some people's sponsor, and I'm losing my mind. What I can tell you is probably a few weeks away from drinking. I suspected it then, and today I know that I was, and what happened is that I stood in hallways like this one, and I asked people for help. That's the thing. We never have to be ashamed to start over here. It's actually the entire point. To continue doing the work is the entire point around here. It's what we do. Promise you, I know the big book like the back of my hand. I feel like I've proven that to you. There is nowhere in there, I swear to God, I've looked. There is nowhere in there where it says, and now you're done. Nowhere. I looked. So what it means is that I get to keep doing the work around here because it is more will be revealed. It is pieces that aren't even in my consciousness today. And I will be more free than I even can conceive at 25 years. And I'll look back at being 19 and be like, wow, that's a trip. So much has changed. I want to be on that train. I want to be, they said if we're not growing, we're going. And so I asked for help, and I got the sponsor that I have today. When I was 2.5 years sober, I asked this woman for help, and she sat down across from me. I was 2.5 years sober and 25 years old, and she had a rubber band holding her big book together. and I asked her for help. I said, can you help me? And our big book talks about a man or a woman with the real answer. And this little tiny mighty woman looked at me and she didn't even flinch. I said, can you help me? And she said, I can. And I said, how do I get comfortable in my own skin? Like, I don't even know what that means. And how do I get a conscious contact with a higher power? What is that? People are talking about it and I don't have it. And how do I stop screaming inside and screaming in the bathroom of my apartment because I can't live like this anymore? And she didn't flinch. She said, you know how you get all that stuff, baby? I said, how? She said, line by line, word by word, page by page. I'm going to take you through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. When it says write, we're going to write. When it says pray, we're going to pray. And she said, you better get a God, baby, because I'm going to fail you. And I said, oh my God, you're going to fail me? Like, are you okay? And I was worried I picked the wrong sponsor. And I was like, oh no. And she started laughing. And my sponsor snorts when she laughs, which makes it extra entertaining. And she said, no, baby, I'm a human power. I can't be your higher power, but I have good news for you, babe. I said, what's that? She said, my entire job, my entire purpose as your sponsor is to introduce you to a power greater than yourself that can solve all your problems. And that's the main purpose of this book, and that's what we're going to do. I said, okay. And she said, you better pay attention, little girl. And I said, yes, ma'am. She said, because I'm teaching the teacher, I'm training the sponsor. If there's something in this book that you don't understand, I need to know, because you are going to spend the rest of your life teaching this book to other women, and it's going to save your life for the rest of your life. That is such a big, idea in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's the entire point. One of my favorite speakers, he says, I don't believe you have to give it away to keep it. I believe you have to give it away to even get it. And that has undoubtedly been my experience in Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't even start to crack the change that has occurred inside of me until I started taking other women through the work. Today I sponsor women that sponsor women that sponsor women that sponsor women, and this gorgeous fellowship of women has grown up among me, and I told you about one of them when we started. I get to fluff their wedding veils and stand at their graduations, and sometimes life occurs because life still occurs when we're here, and sometimes I have to hold their hand at funerals. But we walk shoulder to shoulder through life no matter what's happening in life, and we walk together. That's the best I can promise. When one of she's like my kid, her husband died. And it was exactly a year ago. And I got the call. I was coming back from speaking, and I couldn't breathe, and I almost fell on the floor in the airport because my kid's husband died. And I said, baby, I wish I could protect you. If I could stand in front of the women I sponsor and insulate them from these things happening, I wish I could. I said, but what I can tell you is that I will walk with you through everything in life. Shoulder to shoulder, I'll hold your hand. That's what I can promise you. And so we walk through it, and I don't know, I think I should wrap up soon, but I went through all the steps with my sponsor, and I continue to work so much. I work the 12 steps today all the time, because now that I know freedom, it's really offensive to me when I'm not free. So if I get unfree, I fix it with my sponsor through inventory, today. And that woman with her big book over-delivered on every single promise she made to me that night. One of the things I'll tell you about real quick is we got to the amends. This is the last thing I'll say. We got to the amends, and we sponsor in and out of amends, and my biggest amends really was to my dad. I terrorized that man, and I broke his heart. And he used to look at me. I remember, in early sobriety, I used to tell Tanya, I'm like, he doesn't look at me like his daughter anymore. He looks at me like a creature, and I broke something in him, and I was so excited about the amends. I had tried it before, but now I had really done the work. And you guys told your stories in the meetings about amends, and I was excited because it was my turn. And what it says in the book is that we don't get to have any expectations of what happens on the other side of an amends, but and so so I was really excited, and I had a plan for how the day was going to go, and I went to go sit down with my dad. And I'm ready, right? And I tell my sponsor, I'm going in. She's like, go in, baby, call me after. And I go in and I sit down, and I start with my amends, and my dad starts cracking jokes. And he's like, because he thinks it's funny, and he's like, did you forget about the time you stole my checkbook? And I was like, no. It's on here. And he was like, are you almost done? I'm hungry. And I was like, and like I finished, and like I thought the clouds were gonna part, he was gonna cry, we were gonna hug, right? Like it was gonna be this thing. And like he's like cracking jokes, and like nothing's changed. And I was like, oh my God. And like I was heartbroken. And I go outside, I actually live right by this cafe now, and I go outside to the corner and I call Tanya, because that's what we do. And I call her, and she answers like a good sponsor would. And she said, baby, how was it? And I said, well, it was okay. I did it. And she said, what happened, baby? And I can't hold it. I start sobbing. And I said, Tanya, I broke something in him that I'll never be able to fix. And I start crying, and I said, why? Like, I just want my dad back. And she said, baby, you didn't break his heart over an index card. You're not going to fix it over one. I said, yes, ma'am. And she said, you made an approach, and now starts the amends. I said, okay. What do you want me to do? And she said, I want you to be a daughter to your dad. Give him his daughter back. And she told me some specific things that I could do, and I did them. I used to miss holidays, so she told me I needed to host them, and I would save up my little money and like host my whole family for holidays and like just be consistent, show up, always 19 years, because he didn't know where I was for months at a time. He knows where I'm here tonight. And so, right, I did all this stuff. And 12 years sober, I was out in an amusement park at Christmas time, and I get a call, and it's my dad. And my dad says that he's in the hospital, and he had to leave really quickly, so could I please go get some of his stuff? And now, none of my family's ever been in the hospital. We're all very healthy, other than this pesky alcoholism thing. And so, so I'm scared, not really sure what's going on. I get to the hospital. And now, I got to tell you this, too. I'm the baby of all the kids. I have two older sisters, stepsister and biological sister. We all live on the same street in Los Angeles. It's called Moore Park. Come see us. And like my dad, my sister, like we all live on the same street, and I'm the baby. And I get to the hospital, and it's just me and my dad. And I see what's going on real quick. I talk to my dad for a minute, and I realize really quickly my dad thinks he's going to die. And my whole body starts to get weak, because I've been living with one parent my whole life, and it's scary, but you guys stepped in. And I remember breathing, and I thought, be that woman that Alcoholics Anonymous has trained you to be. Show up for this man. Be a daughter to your dad. And I said, Daddy, what can I do? And I asked him, and I said, where is everyone else? And he looked at me, and he said, I just called you, kid. I wanted to make sure somebody sane and sober was here running point for the family on what's going to be a really tragic situation, and now that you're here, you can call the rest of the family. Amends aren't always made over an index card. What it says in my book is that an amends are a restoration. It's restoring the person to the position they were in before I ripped through their life to the best of my ability, and sometimes that takes a lot of time. And I remember I called after a couple days in the hospital. I went outside and I called Tanya. I said, Tanya, my dad's going to die. And she said, okay, baby, what do we need to do? Do you need to make a bedside amends? And I said, no, ma'am. I've done what you told me to do. I've been a daughter to my dad all these years, and he knows that I love him, and all I'm going to do is stand there and hold his hand. And she said, okay, baby, I'm going to walk with you. And my dad didn't die. It's something we looked at again a couple years ago. It was like a medical miracle back then, but it's something that we face every day right now, and it gets me every time. But I promise you, if we call my dad from the podium, he will tell you how proud he is of his kid. And if that's the only thing that ever happens, like my dad being proud of me, which it's not, I will spend the rest of my life trying to pay Alcoholics Anonymous back. I'll fly where you want me to fly. I'll drive where you want me to drive. I'll sponsor whoever you want me to sponsor. Because you guys gave my dad a daughter. You gave my sisters a sister. You gave my sponsees a sponsor. You gave my friends a friend. And everything that I value about myself was built in the folding chairs of Alcoholics Anonymous. There is nothing I value about myself that wasn't built here. If you want anything that sounds like what I have, I promise you, there's no secret handshake. There's nothing we're not going to tell you. It's outlined in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and we'll help you find it. Thanks.